kind of the reason why I chose not to comment about that militarily. The table that I mentioned for seems to be particularly aggravated about and just acting absolutely crazy, like shit crazy, and she was shut up a minute ago. And I was saying that there was this group of couple with child. The only reason that I need to be even mildly suspicious is the child facing me. Even the other ones were facing away. And also that it was music teaching animation that today as one of the two points. But other than that, it's not much, if anything. So I'm emphasizing to you that that happened and that they've been here in front of me and I can take it into restaurants, all that out. But other than this, it's really not all that much to add up to this moment. To, as I said, equivalent to our parties and using suspicions. So, really suspicion is, as I said, it's pretty empty and not the most normal looking individual for their hat or beard or most importantly the gigantic cow bag next to me. But as I would point out to the guy so, as I pointed out to the guy yesterday, yes, so what? But I'm just pointing out that you have plenty of options. I wouldn't say that it'd be reasonable to be able right in front. As I said, I honestly don't know all that much. And that's why I didn't show anything. And it goes to show about as far as consistency goes. Again, for the party that doesn't lie and doesn't come up with crap like that, the ones that sit in the all the time as well. So, what else I have to say? By the way, seeing the things on the screen there, fewer God rays, more normal things, you can see my face. Yeah, that I think is a result of the unintended recording, of me just recording from an unintended way. Compared to the previous video, when you see me using the same camera, it's nothing else. The camera is much dirtier because right now, that is much cleaner. Right now, it's much dirtier because right now I just removed the wrapper slightly out of the way. And you got to see me. Before, all you see was black and the lights in the back. I even pointing out how shiny they were, kind of like this. But even now, you got to see me. So, cannot speak for what that, as I said before, is a filter that they'll place on the screen, and it's pretty much that. Okay. What else? I'm trying to speak a bit slower in case it's trying to interfere, even though that's not entirely necessary. Let's do me. So, and that is for the purposes of just having a general picture of it all. There was just one time I looked up though, there was this thing happening in front, there was something happening to my side, there was something happening behind me, and I felt surrounded, all of which trying to shove children around. And I just chose to, one of the reasons also that I chose to react today. I didn't even pay too much attention, I still chose to, I think the one in the back, two of them had for sure. And I just kind of saw those absolute shit show. But I felt important to document this for you because one friend was there for sure, there's another one was there for sure. And the other one, I didn't think I paid too much, I just assumed, or chose not to assume. I chose just, I finished watching the video and react to something else happening. And that's pretty much it. As far as the rest goes, as I said, it's important to see because the criminal citizenship in general likes to escalate those things. As you saw, this is the reason why speaking of things that that would be the table that I mentioned. That is exactly. Notice that. Compare that with every other time that I point out them saying things to you here. The random sentences, the random laughs out of place that disappears. Talking alongside me, when I'm talking. As I said, just another case of citizenship. It's not like you haven't seen that hundreds of times before. And that's my point. So, as I pointed out, And by the way, that's how they communicate. When I mentioned that they talk to each other, that's how they talk to me. And this is with me wearing headphones. So imagine that for you. It ought to be. And ought to be in the sense that they've been trying to implement that yesterday, but it ought to be much clearer and much louder than it is for me because I used to have something music obstructing the way. It's music. Right? It's the headphones I was listening to the video from. And it ought to be much clearer. Because it's not because it gets the one with. So now a caveat. Usually this point is me talking, it's just so you can see my mouth moving and link that up to the audio. Now I'm seeing the audio bar acting all crazy again. And so that's another way for you to see you can read my lips, the reason why I'm talking so slow. If we actually use it and feel the music as well. So as I said, just nip it in the butt. You're literally seeing all the background is now from just about every angle you can see. From the background, and when today, the way that I was talking, how the chapters were, others in the middle of the video. These are 40-something-minute videos. Naturally, either because of time or the shift stupidity, literal shift of the videos to the minute 30-something, into a 57-minute video. So you got to see literally the change as you can see my hands, you can see my face, you can see everything. There are things that we can around the entire environment. How it evolves from me mentioning, there's something in the air, mucus coming out, and then a major change in psychological behavior. As I said, pretty straight up. Now, as I said, happening in videos where they have things that lawyers could use. But it should really be clear now. Because again, today is the one time I feel myself every day, and every day is seeing talk. Every day is seeing explain things. Every day is hearing me mention a different every day. Not a couple days. Every day. So today might be the easiest one you can see. That's just what it is. The easiest one you can see on all this. You're gonna see this is the process. And it is that every time everything ends. And also saw today. Notice that it. So what's today's what happened not today in the videos anymore. There was this weird guy who asked something. He mentions about waxing his knee. Which I imagine watching his knee. Which I imagine it's either that he's going to pee in his own knee, or in a more reasonable way, it's some slang for sticking pants. Which in the context of being kissed and shit, then being kissed and shit, it's, like I said, it'll be a fool, right? Particularly the second one. But it is just bleeding out the excess. It didn't feel, it already feel up internal form, so some of that has to go out. As for the normal one in the end, I'll go for it now. I take the back. Did some lingering? No, but there's definitely not. Probably very small quantity in that case. Again, I don't, but based on what I watched from the cops mentioned, I see a little bit of that in the shirt and from the smell for quite some time. I heard that from the traffic stop. That's how we should really look into the context of this. It's way more relevant than one extra thing. If you ever wondered why this is such a wonderful question, such a life no, but definitely no. I mean, no, yeah. I would say, I'm not very huge into it. It's normal one. There's you can smell it. Which is funny because it didn't start when that noise they started, it didn't start where you started, didn't start all over the place here now. Very strong. Pretty soon coming down from there. Excuse me. I was saying on me. You saw me just passing behind me. That was the only one that could. Somebody else was right next to me. And there's the cars and the tables to the other side. There's the car. So everything's coming in. Coming to music. So yeah, that's the one individual. It has nothing to do with the noise, but then I just want to point out, including this medicine. Something about boring. It's not useful. There's something about boring. Something like about boring. Which, again, for that to be mentioned, now when the child is reaching on screen, but right after the nation, mine, I think it was not quite right after. Yeah, indeed, it was not second after, as usual, but that's the one thing that I don't think is much. But I have to say that you probably saw many happen. It's just the easiest one. Not perhaps not the easiest. I'm sure how not. As I mentioned that the audio, this whole thing started after I mentioned the audio down the screen, because it's an audio bar as I see the screen, right? Which is down purpose, because let's just say it's not the first play tempo in the launch. The tempo will have it for the longest time. Also, as I mentioned in the first play tempo in Judson, also note that first off, the anger drugs cause just about the opposite effect over the smell of this thing. But I just want to point out, in the same environment when you have a child crying this close, there was at that time release of money. Which, like I said before, and trust me, if I want to mention drugs, there are just about everything else that is better than the one that gets legalized almost everywhere. So, as for the thing, and anger drugs, all those types of drugs, heat sweat drugs to me, that's both of other ones, the sedation drugs, also like the opioids, all of which are just about 15 times worth, if not more, for everything purposes. I'm just pointing to factors and the place that the British have done with forever should once again have proven the crime. And they also forced the students to release that. And honestly, it was mixed with some smell. You know how they do release drugs and mixed drugs? You could notice that very subtly alongside it. Kind of like they did before. As a matter of fact, one of the ideas, the genius ones, before I mentioned that, I think in the morning, was to release drugs to hide other drugs. And one of the main ones was marijuana, because it was one of the ones we think the lightest is that, arguably, and off that, they once did that for the heat sweat drugs. The thing is, heat sweat drugs or anger drugs, or heavy drugs, sometimes cause anger, agitation, restlessness, swim sweat, nervousness, just about everything. You know what the medicinal marijuana is used for? Because when I was reading about that, because I was very skeptical of that, to be honest with you, like that. And at least a couple of those seem to be more or less in line with it. That's, as I mentioned in the morning, they're opposite. When they thought they were in good candor to release the drugs would do something, and then release the smell of the other one as a decoy, and it was like, Oh, that makes no sense. But, yeah, that is sure. And again, that is it doesn't stop. And the most important thing is that you just notice he hasn't stopped, which isn't key for as a matter of fact that is happening in this by the fact that I was just able to see that as one of the motives for the fact that it just did not stop fucking up left, right, and center. And for the most part, and I'm not able to point that out to you because I'm an extremely judge or the pistol crimes, I cannot trust them to me, but I cannot actually properly point it out. For the criminals that once again come to me to do the crimes. Did I even bother to show that one to you? But you can still see enough, right? As I said, and those are the things that, again, that's the definition of toxicity, my behavior. That's the entire time. And there's a point. Now, this is not like, whatever happened today wouldn't change what happened right away in the future. I'm pointing, right now, not today, but right now. It wouldn't change. So it's just all showing what is already happening or not happening. This is why several times I say, I'm happy to see evidence, because it's not like those things are not happening in the way. They are. It's that with evidence, you get to see it. And again, if this was to solve locally, it would have been solved already in any of those groups. As for things that happen back home, as I mentioned before, even if the assumption was that the things that happened that were horrifying, the church was self-defense, then the simple question coming after is, so what? The things will be happening loud. They are explicit. Put your hands to dial 911. Nobody had hands because they had hands to film, bought them to share, make use of national things and national fans. Now, don't get me wrong. What they do to me is because what can you expect one person to do when surrounded by all this? But they're not one person. So they thought this was absolutely horrifying, which is why they sheltered and nurtured it and boom, we're using drugs. As they did just in this city, a couple months ago in the street, releasing the same drugs on me, like it's made in the South, that's coming up with a lot of people. Connect to the cable. This is the one thing that happens. You know? So, I will be documenting that in a minute. For what it's worth. What you had was Alpha understanding immediately next to us and to the public channel. Off standing right next to me. Oh, by the way, I'm not going to change. Just positively, just wanted to make the assumption that most of that are being believed. Just not believe it. Just because it wants to sound plausible to Josh. But I just doesn't like to you. For the argument is that once you've seen all the things you've seen and you see some understanding of the point in directly your own way, standing right next to you, again, the intuition to street life with all the other things you get to see. And again, I'm not saying the minimum of security is just looking individual, got things around. And most importantly, in this context, in this speaking, is opportunity to set the stop. You can realize what the details. And if it goes down and argue normally, perhaps to have a hard time proving it to you. But for the time, by the time I notice, it's just standing there. And as I said, you can see that in the other five. Doesn't have any connectivity to anything. Cannot even be published. As I said, it will be given to the once it's stopping this in the future, context. What I am testifying to you is part that we just noticed an extreme right standing facing me, which is weird because I look at him facing the same way. As of that, you can imagine this either one of the real crimes, real victim crimes, and the gratitude you like all these kidnapped vehicles of real victims, or you could argue that, or something, some specific about it, like for instance, either assumption is fake and it's documented, or the assumption that the just to have an impact on me, I need to stop talking, for instance, because they're putting some of the business to do authority. But up to now, including now, it's not strong enough. And if I was going to stop, it was going to be very clear that it's stopping because it's stopping and talking to the point of catching attention, only moving away the second that this plug entered and the thing which stops the video, as you can see right now. And that was the moment when you put down the phone and you set in the chat. As you can hear, at the time when you could hear me. So, that'll be documented. But as of now, so it's fun. Okay. So, and again, this is halfway evidence for the most part, as you notice the mention of it, which I could just leave. I will have to take my minutes anyways because they continue to throw this article to damage me to pee. And as I saw this day, that would get to the point of them to fix myself if I don't. As demonstrated. So at the end of the day, if that was not meant to be halfway evidence, I could have shut up. But for what it's worth. Now I propose to you what the intention was to wait until the moment of the recording and that phone was interrupted to then come back to normal life. Because again, in discussing this here, you saw the people that I didn't do something. Some of it's big. It is not clicking, it's not noisy, it's not loud, it's not any of the very shape of it. Okay? And if it was mostly for the intention of real victim crimes, than trying to other things that victims could try to happen. It doesn't matter the fact that the little noise would be actually master. In other words, what's happening or happening, you're gonna get for a variety of other evidence that wasn't required, just synthesizing things here to explain it. It's for to know what's happening and have that variety of ways when it started, how did it proceed. I'm just pointing that out because we're talking, this is his own crime, the big crime, and if it is he's talking whatever the fuck that is, but it is involving just the best example that I mentioned to you. I don't know if that's talking. And if it is, it's pointless because the part of this is reading a phone they hacked because the only phone I have really bad videos and the whole thing about dumpster country when I went back to buy a phone. Chef's kiss as far as understanding why that's such the case. But for the phones to be hacked, I've been hacked. And as I pointed out, by the way, it just occurred to me, which is funny. For the crimes of children, now this is one of the best examples. I'm going to say something that please. In fact, that I'll actually do on the file. I mentioned before, differences in spirits to technicality. The English helps as well, as I said. This depends on the case. As I say, the partial contrary, I think you should listen to absolutely everything that has to say. As I said several times. About me. And within the context of the story, let's look at that. I think that's even one thing. Inside with a child, and he puts the bag obstructing its face while leaving the child in the view. Everything that you do to protect the child. sound is different. Back to the point, as I said, even though we're disconnecting this, it's just possible to have it. No, there's a phone. Vamos to this place is double. I want to you should see again if you look at the table. It's a pretty fucking big table of stuff on top of it. Mostly because of the fact that it's just laptop is doing. No. I have to keep on doing that. I'll be switching up. Fully ready. Switching up the